Are you an artist who always finds yourself hesitant to show your work, to post your work online? Yung tipong alam na alam mong hindi naman masagwa yung art mo, but you're still afraid that you might get some form of hate or some disapproval. On this video series, let's talk about what we call imposter syndrome. Now, imposter syndrome is something that is experienced by, if I'm not mistaken, every creative from every genre or every art form. Imposter syndrome is something that somehow inhibits us from creating or from showing our work. And I would tell you that imposter syndrome is absolutely natural, and sometimes it has actually good effects. However, it can really go bad for some creatives. So, imposter syndrome is actually that lack of self-esteem, and I'm pretty sure that a lot of us get this. Most artists have self-esteem, not really issues, but maybe we check more our credibility as artists. We check more how good we are, and we question a lot if we actually deserve to be seen or if we actually deserve to be paid. And I know a lot of artists, really good artists, who have been affected by imposter syndrome to the point wherein they either refuse to get paid for some really, really good works, or they were affected so bad that they quit the craft entirely. And this talks about not just, of course, I'm a photographer. This also talks about videographers, about painters, about actors, about comedians, musicians, everything that involves really some form of expertise. And again, it's normal for us. It's actually inherent for any of us to sometimes doubt the quality of our work, but it doesn't mean that we should stop. Now, here are some things wherein we draw imposter syndrome. Number one, of course, is our general self-esteem. If you're someone who lacks confidence, then you actually really might be more susceptible to imposter syndrome. However, that shouldn't be a sign for you to stop. Next is, of course, we tend to compare ourselves to other people. We tend to compare ourselves to the people we look up to. And of course, if you're inspired by a certain artist, maybe a photographer or whatever, and you're aspiring to be like them, then you're bound to find yourself not as good as that particular person, because again, that person gave you inspiration. And there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, we have to accept that there is a process that we take, and we will make mistakes. We will have some failures, but we can take a look at those failures and eventually take them and see them as steps towards what we want to become. And there's absolutely nothing wrong about that. And I guess another thing that hinders us creatives from showcasing our work is the lack of support from people. The problem with being an artist or being a creative, especially when you're not coming from a circle of people with the same craft, with the same interests, if you're not from a family with the same interest, for example, you're not a family of photographers, you're not a family of painters, you're not a family of musicians, then of course, a lot of what you do would tend to be misunderstood. And if they don't share the same passion, there's a high chance that they also can't see the importance of the process, and they can't see the hope that you see in your work, that eventually it will be something that could either make you famous or something that could earn money for you. But even then, if you're not even after that, your art is your expression. Your art is your way of expressing yourself, of turning your ideas into something tangible. Your art doesn't always need to be putting food on the table, especially if there is already food on the table. sometimes you have to let your art just be your art. You just have to let your art be your way of expression, and you just have to let your art be your source of happiness. And for a lot of people, that's very important. And I guess the one thing that we should all know is that art doesn't always have to be the best. Our art doesn't have to always be the best. It also doesn't always have to make money. Unless, of course, someone is using your art, then of course you should be getting a slice of the pie. What I'm saying is not everything has to be money generating or income generating. Not everything has to be good enough to sell or to trend or to be popular. Sometimes you just need to create out of the fact that you need to create. And if you're a creative, you know what I'm talking about. You know that you always find yourself just craving for that feeling of creating something, and you just have to give in. And that's why imposter syndrome is something that you can get past. You know, you just have to create. And you don't even have to think about what other people would say, because number one, a lot of these people don't know where you're coming from. A lot of these people don't understand your taste, and they weren't really there for you to please to begin with. I mean, you might be disagreeing with this video, and I'm not here to please you, probably. So, imposter syndrome, it's something you can get over, and it's easier to get over it when you have good support. So I do hope you find that support system for you. But in any case, imposter syndrome and feeling it, there's nothing wrong about it, because it can be something that pushes you to learn further and to be better in your craft. And obviously, this can move mountains for you. And remember, never ever let imposter syndrome stop you. That's the one thing you don't want it to do. Because number one, you should be creating for yourself primarily. Unless you're being paid by anyone, then of course, your art form, your craft, your output has to be something for you, not for that person who likes your photos, not for that person who shares your photos, not for anybody else but you. But of course, you're allowed to dedicate some of your work. But if you are having a crisis in terms of self-esteem about your work, just put it out there. Keep creating, keep sharing, and it's not going to please everyone. It's bound to please someone. And the more you get better, it's bound to please more people. But in any case, it doesn't matter, because what you should know is you should keep expressing yourself. As long as it's not insulting or hurting anyone, you're allowed to use your art to express yourself and allow yourself to be you.